Okay, so we're doing a source analysis. The first thing you want to do is just look at the image. Okay, so there's kind of two main focuses you have here. One of them is, and I can write this down actually, what is happening in the image, and the other is, what do you think is the message in the image? Okay, so this is just a precursor. You're going to be doing source analysis essays in grade 10, 11, and 12. Just a show of hands, how many of you think that you might go to 30-1 social? I'm just curious to see. Okay. How many of you think that you'll probably prefer the -2 stream? Okay. So in both of these, you're going to see the source analysis essay. So building this skill now is very useful in terms of doing well on your assignments later on. Obviously, source analysis and writing essays in social studies in general is about building your ability to think critically and building your ability to articulate yourself, right? Your thoughts in your head to be able to speak them. So anytime you look at an image, you want to ask yourself, what is happening here? And what do you think is the message? The reason why I asked that question about -1 and -2 is that here is a -1 diploma from 2019. So in the -1, their sources, they don't really have political cartoons. Instead, they give you quotes. Okay? This would be your source. And then these guys were lucky. Actually, I guess they were unlucky. They only got one image. In other years, sometimes you get two images, you get one quote. Okay? So that's an important distinction here. I can show you kind of what my grade 12s do in a moment, but for the -2, so if we go to the same thing, diploma exemplars, let's go to the same year, 2019. If you look at their assessment, yeah, they have 3 images. Okay, so here is a protest, a couple different captions here. You have a graph, or I guess a chart, pie graph. Okay, this is, some of you might remember I mentioned to you that although we don't teach you how to read a graph and chart in social studies, you will need that skill from math class. It's useful, right? You kind of got to understand what's going on here, and then you have a source. In the -2, it's more common to see 2 political cartoons and potentially a graph. Whereas like we just saw in the -1, you're going to get quotes. Okay, you're going to have to analyze the perspective there. Okay, so let's go back to our assignment. So this, ideally, like for this assignment, just do this in your head, right? But when we start to begin to analyze our source, the first thing you want to ask is, what information would you need to understand the message in this cartoon? So what topics, what concepts would you need to be familiar with to even understand how to respond to this cartoon? Okay, just raise your hands. I would love to hear what you have to say. I'll fill in as well. Okay, we've all looked at the image. What's one thing that you need to know about? You're making me look bad on camera, kids. Thank you. Yeah, right there. Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? If you don't know what that is, it's going to be hard to understand what's going on here. You think it's you would think it's like a really weird birthday cake. Okay, and you should be writing this stuff down on your piece of paper, okay? So Charter of Rights and Freedoms, what else might we need to know about? What's kind of a precursor to the charter? What comes before the charter? I guess kind of a technicality there. Does every country have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms? No, so you might need to know about Canadian governance. Okay, you kind of got to understand how the charter came to be, right? This would include, so I'll write, how did charter come to be? What is the process of getting rights? Okay, so things like that. What other information do you think you might need to know about? The number? Well, what do you mean by that? Help me understand. Perhaps. So let's say history of charter. Okay. When was it? When was the Charter of Rights formulated? Yeah, it's 1982 or 1984. I feel bad. Like I feel like I should know that. Yeah, I'll give you all a copy of the charter, like either today or tomorrow. Okay. The whole thing. It's all yours, buddy. It seems like 1982 would be the best year. Pierre Trudeau signed it in 1981. I believe it was patriated in 1982. Okay. So, but more importantly, grade nines, the history is more important than the exact date. Okay. What else might you need to know about? Okay, so you might need to know about this, the different sections. So no, we'll get back to his point later on. Hey boys, let's focus over here. Thank you. We'll get back to that point later on because I brought that up with the morning class, but it is important. It's useful. Okay. How about this? Do you need to know what a right is? You need to know what a freedom is. Perhaps you need to know what responsibilities are. Okay. So this is something I mentioned in the morning. In your response, you don't necessarily have to address all of this that we just wrote down. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you couldn't really see the board properly. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to respond to all of this, but it's useful to know. Okay, so I'll show you one of my guidelines that I use for my kind of just source analysis in general. Responding and including this type of information, this background information, can really help you when you're identifying links to your course material. In grade 10, you do globalization, grade 12, nationalism, and grade 11, nationalism, and grade 12, ideologies. Okay? It can also help with this critical thinking portion. Okay? So when you don't include in your actual paragraph response connections to, background information, which helps to understand the message, it's very difficult to get above being valid in general, being adequate, right? That's satisfactory. Satisfactory is anywhere from 50% to, I don't know, what's 5 divided by 8? 50% to 62.5, right? That's satisfactory, okay? So the whole point of satisfactory is that, you're not wrong, but you're not putting in that specific and accurate detail. You're not providing these sound arguments or convincing arguments, being insightful, being specific, accurate, okay? But we'll get into that more, okay? So I think this is good enough for now. Let's actually scroll down and see what did we write for the morning class? Was there anything? Okay. So with relationship to the numbers, if the Canadian Charter came out in 1982 and there's 25 at the top, we can assume that this source takes place in 2007. That could be useful to your response. You might also need to know about the Canadian government structure and the history. We already did this one. Here's a useful question to consider in your response. Make sure we're listening, boys, not just handing water bottles back and forth. When you look at this image, part of your intuition to what is happening in the image should have been that, or it could have been that, hey, we're losing our rights and freedoms. So a good background information question to have is, when have Canadians lost their rights in the past? Are Canadians losing their rights currently? Okay. And we studied a bit of this in both chapter 3 and 4. As part of governance, grade 9s, you can write this stuff down as well, right? Whatever we didn't have up ahead, because these are very useful points to consider for your response. How does the government reduce or limit the rights of Canadians? What is the actual process? What's up? You have a question?
Is there like a box right now or just empty?
Yeah, there should be a space.
Oh.
You have your hand out, right? You flip the other page. Yeah, so you can write all this stuff down in the background information. It's the first box. It should be on the first page. Ah, here. I thought, okay, my bad. Let me also make this. That's a good question. Thank you for pointing that out. Let me just shift that all this way. Okay. So you can write down some of these questions, grade 9s, because it's going to help you with getting a, I'll show you your assignment later, but to get that excellent proficient mark, if that's what you're aiming for, these are some of the perspectives that you have to explore in your response. Okay, you don't have to do this, but again, if your personal goal is 75% and above, you want to explore the topic in depth. Okay. While you're writing that down and thinking about the next response, I'll just share with you something I would tell my grade 10s. These kids are in grade 12 now. You want to make a specific point, right? Think about like an arrow tip. The reason you make a specific point is when you're on point and when it's accurate and you're not off topic, that's how you get the best marks. Okay? You make a specific point. The risk is that if you're incorrect, you're really incorrect. So you know, high risk, high reward. Okay? But if you just stay general and broad, it's hard to get above a 65%, a 60%. Okay, labeling. What kind of labels do we see on our source? Remember, what are labels? There any words or any captions on the source? I think you were about to say that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what words, what captions do we see on our source? Go ahead.
On the cake, it says Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom.
Excellent. Grade 9s, I know sometimes you're going to hear the responses and you're going to think like, oh, that's so simple and obvious. It doesn't matter. You still have to point that out. So what you want to do in your response is you have to put in quotation marks. It says Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Notice how I'm capitalizing the start of these letters, okay? You can't just like write whatever you want. What other caption did we see? So some teachers will say to mention the author of the source. I personally don't really care so much. I honestly, on many diploma responses, I never see the responses mention the source, right? So you could kind of ignore this. The number 25, right? Okay, and these are the labels, and these are labels that are important to your response. So let me give you a little example here. It might take me a second to pull this up, so bear with me. But the reason why, so it's important to understand that there is information that's relevant that you should include in your response, and there's information that, in my opinion, is irrelevant that doesn't really help build your response. And part of the process of writing is figuring out how to decipher information, right? That's kind of what you're here to do, not just listen to me talk about random things. Apparently random things, let's say. So this was a source that some of my grade 12s did, and many of them chose to mention in this that the sky is blue. Now, initially I was kind of shocked, and I told them that, hey, like, that's irrelevant. But then I changed that and said, well, unless you're going to take the approach and talk about environmental impact, don't mention that the sky is blue, right? Because it's not really relevant to the main issue here. The main issue in this source is about forest clear cutting, okay? So unless you're going to mention, well, forest clear cutting negatively impacts the environment and air quality, we might see less blue skies in the future because of global warming, climate change. Many of them didn't do that. They just saw that, hey, well, the sky's blue. I'll write the sky's blue. The water is kind of dark on the left side and not on the right side. And, you know, like they were just mentioning too many details that aren't relevant to their argument, okay? So with kind of labeling, coming back to that wherever my response is, like, even though the labeling here is so obvious, it still plays a role in your response. It's not just any cake, right? And now when we go to the symbols, labels and symbols connect together. So what are some of the symbols, right? And keep this message in red in mind. It's not on your handout. Go ahead.
The guy on the picture cutting out a piece of the cake.
Right? There is a hand. I will add, some people in some sources, so if we go back to that same, I think it's this one. No. So here, let me just give you some clarification. Hopefully this isn't too much information. It's all on video. You can go back and watch it, okay? So just like how this source has a hand here, you could just mention there's a hand cutting into the cake. But, you know, at the grade 12 level, like, look at the difference in the hands here. Do you notice anything about these hands?
They're different genders,
So some assumptions are they're different genders. How do we know that? Right? Okay, this person's got nail polish, pink shirt. Maybe this is outdated now, I don't know. But some people chose to mention this is a woman's hand. This hand is a different color than that hand, right? And they okay, let's not go that way, right? The cups are bigger as well. And they're bigger according to the type of hand, right? So, in your response, you could just mention that this is a hand. You could also mention that there is a, I'm just going to put it in brackets. And honestly, kids, like, I don't know how much you should focus on this, but I don't know. Things are changing. I'll come up with an opinion about that later. So there's a white hand you could mention. And you could also mention let me put a comma here. Put that. The person is wearing a suit. Right? What is a suit a symbol for, let's say? Status, right? Like if you just kind of happened to my friend over the weekend. He said somebody at a gas station who was driving a really nice Audi, had a haircut and whatnot, looked really well put together, was asking him for money. And my friend was asking my opinion, like, what would you do in this situation? And we both agreed it was kind of bizarre. But if someone was going around very clean cut wearing a suit, right, you wouldn't assume that they're maybe down on their luck, right? So the suit is a symbol, and so you can reference that, okay? What other symbols do you see? Keep in mind, right, these symbols, these images, they're connecting to a greater message. Right, there's a big symbol right here. At the back? I'm not going to say your names on the recording. Hey, we'll mention that in a different section, right? Because you're referring to how this section's cut, right? You're referring there's more here than here? No. That's something we discussed in the morning. So we'll just summarize as the location of the cuts. So I actually showed this to the class in the morning. The bottom right section of your charter, ironically, maybe this isn't the irony, it's the section that basically states that the charter applies both to the citizens and to the government, right? So you're not wrong for mentioning that. But the challenge is, how many of you know all the sections of the charter? I don't, right? So you might not necessarily know that, but you can make the argument that, and we'll do this in the irony, like certain rights are being removed. Okay. Once again, just a casual reminder, make sure you're writing this stuff down because it's going to help you for your actual response tomorrow, which you do on your own. Okay, so if you're just going to sit there and do nothing, you're harming yourself, okay? I would highly recommend, if you don't have a pencil, Okay, there was one at the front. If you don't have a pencil, ask for one. Write this stuff down. I'm not collecting this document for marks, but you're going to take information from this document and put it into your actual response, okay? What other symbols? Really big one. So let me phrase it this way. Like, why do you think the artist... Actually, go ahead. You've got your hand up then. Only the flag is in color. So I'd be curious to hear, like how would you build that into an argument?
Nothing else matters.
Well,
It's like I don't know the Canadian what really matters, right?
because I do think it's a good observation. I'm cutting you off. It's a good observation, but I would love to hear how you build that into your response, right? So like what he mentioned that, sure, maybe that identity of the Canadian flag is the only thing that matters. Maybe, right? But what would you say to that, to your observation there?
That like Canadian flag in Canada in itself.
I see the vision. I like it. Okay. How do I narrow that down under symbols? So we could say only the Canadian flag is in color. Now for you, if you really want to build on this part, you could do that in kind of the analogy and the overall message. These two are very similar. I'll talk about that later. What's up? Give it. Yeah, it will. So you can definitely say 25. It's on the board, just everything we wrote. So it's just part of the labeling. So you could say that it's so what I wrote down earlier here that you might have been curious about is this part. So if the charter was, let's say the charter was born in 1982, they're celebrating its 25th birthday, and there's a bunch of slices taken out of it. I'm pretty sure my math is correct, but 25 plus 1982 should have been 2007. So, like, if you really wanted to do a properly researched response, which is not what you do for source analysis, you don't do a lot of research, right? Just to clarify, if you really wanted to look into it, you would kind of examine these two questions in regards. I hope you're looking at the board, right? You would examine these two questions in regards to what was going on in Canada in 2007. So even I don't have a proper answer for that. Like I in 2007, I was 11 years old. So I was more concerned with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh than I was with Stephen Harper and his government. I'm pretty sure I was born in 1996. Yeah, I was born in 1996. Some of you kids weren't even a concept in 2007. I'll be 28 this year. Okay. You guys are missing the big one, and it's totally understandable. It's super obvious. Are you reading my mind?
The crumbs?
Is the cake symbolizing the charter?
Yeah, the cake. The cake is a symbol. Now, hold on, right? All of us are and ahhing, okay? Ask yourself this. Like, why choose a cake? How many of you have cut a cake? Okay. What would you say is easier to cut? A piece of cake or a chunk of steak? Cake. So what is the symbolism there? What is the meaning there? Right. Okay. So the cake symbolizes the charter, right? And that can kind of be, that can be in the analogy and the overall message, okay? / how easy it is to remove rights, okay? Does anyone see any other symbols they want to talk about? You mentioned crumbs. So grade 9s, again, just let's do for this for consideration. So the tray and the crumbs, is that, if you consider it relevant information, I would be curious to know how you argue that. Because as a teacher, that's my job to figure out. Okay, you brought up a piece of evidence. You mentioned the tray. But how did you build that into your response? Okay, I'm just going to go across left this way. Beautiful, right? So I didn't think of it that way. Like in my mind, the crumbs would be irrelevant, but that's an incredibly awesome interpretation of they're taking away the majority, but they're leaving you just enough to, I don't know, man, whatever the government does, right? They do weird things sometimes, right? They're leaving you just enough to make you feel like you still have your rights, okay? So I like that. So let's go. Crumbs equals leaving just enough. I don't know. Let's say leaving just enough to avoid revolution and horrible things from the population. Just enough behind. Okay. That was me sharing my thoughts. There was two other people with their hands up. Did you want to say something? Right? Everybody had that brilliant thought? Okay, awesome. You got to pick up the crumbs of what he left behind with his response, you know? Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Sure. Thank you for reminding me. Hopefully, because it looks like some of y'all are just like eager to get to the next section. Hopefully, you already have ideas to talk about exaggeration. Okay. So while people are copying this, think about your responses and I'll include them. Okay. It's better if you do it than I do it, right? Because that's a good question. Why is it better if you do it as opposed to me? Because you got to build this skill. Maybe more so than I do. Okay. Not saying I don't have to build this skill. What's up back there? Yeah, excellent, excellent. How easy it is to take away the rights. Okay, what else? What else? What else is being exaggerated? Okay, can I just show you the responses first that the other class got? Okay, so I did this slightly differently with them. That's why there's no explanations here. But yeah, this is kind of what we came up with, or to be specific, this is what I came up with. So, okay, let's take a look at exaggeration then. So the exaggeration in this source is how easy it is to take away the rights. We could be specific of Canadians. What else? Come on, this corner has been so quiet. Any brilliance you want to share? But you're in the middle. Talking about this corner. No, nothing. You don't want to share your thoughts? Fine then, keep your secrets. Okay. Anybody else? What else is being exaggerated here? Right? Look at the quantity of cake cut away. Right? Like, can we talk about that? Right? How many rights are taken away? Okay. And you know what? Fair enough. Like maybe you don't have a lot to say about this because, this one is pretty central to the image. Okay. Secondary, I would add, is how many rights are taken away, right? Like they're ripping off quite a big, significant portion of it, right? Like you were mentioning in the back over there. I don't know what you're doing back there. That was kind of strange. Like to your point earlier that, hey, look at how much rights are removed from this side of the charter. For the record, this portion that's being cut off is part of section 25 to 31, which is like your general stuff. So section 25 just states the guarantee in this charter of certain rights and freedoms shall not be construed so as to abrogate or derogate from any Aboriginal treaty or other rights or freedoms. Okay, so they're basically about to cut off the Indigenous Aboriginal rights section. Okay. This is minority language and education rights. Yeah, application of the charter. No, I agree. I agree. So I'll give you all one of these and you can kind of read that portion yourself. I'll be honest, the language is sometimes a little challenging to understand, but I'm sure you can find stuff on YouTube. You can also ask Uncle Google. He knows a lot. Hey, what's up at the front? Hey, that's actually a really important point because in 2007, Stephen Harper's conservative government did address. I believe that's the year they apologized, either 07 or '08. They apologized to Indigenous people, and there was some sort of a claims. What am I trying to say? Not necessarily claims. The government. It's not the best word to use, but it's the only one coming to mind. They conceded to some of what was going on there in terms of relationships between Indigenous peoples and the Canadian government. Right? So we could still say in the symbolism, the area of which the slices are taken is connected to, and then we have Aboriginal rights, we have the general understanding, and we have application of charter, lang/minority education rights. Okay, but so hold on, grade 9s, before we get a little too far down this rabbit hole, it's important to understand that, like, unless you already know this off the top of your head from stuff that we've learned, boys in the middle or far corner, right? Unless you already know this stuff, you don't want to do too much research. This is something I talked about with Mr. Olson. Your source analysis is not a research essay for you to bring in piles and piles of information. It's more so just managing, like, your understanding of the source. So actually, if I just go here to my my explanation, it's your ability to, if you look at the rubric, actually interpret a source and defend your position. So defending your interpretation of that image. It's not about bringing in research and supporting a claim you're making. It's about saying, hey, I think the message of this source is XYZ, and the reason I believe that is ABC. And when you do ABC, it's not in-depth research, right? It's more so just logic, right? And I honestly, I think that's part of why they use this phrase for the excellent, that it's filled with logical arguments, okay? So keep that in mind. You're not going to go to, yeah, it's useful. Go to Uncle Google, ask him a question, right? What does section 25 of the charter mean? So you understand, but you're not pulling in that research for your response necessarily, right? There's a fine line here that's hard to walk and easily determined after it's graded. Okay, so in terms of exaggeration, we don't have much else to add there from the other ones. Okay, what's ironic about this? Thank you. What's some of the irony in this source? Anyone? Any takers? What's up? Right, it's ironic. Hey, I thought we really had rights, but according to this artist, we don't. Because it's easy as cake to take it away. Like a piece of cake, right? That's how easy it is to get rid of our rights in Canada. Like a piece of cake. Okay? Let them eat cake is more like a rich versus poor people thing. Sure, right? So we could put in here how easy it is to remove rights, the complex nature of the relationship between those who have authority and those who do not, right? Let them eat cake. Okay, what's up? let's finish this first, okay? Let's get this done, then we'll be done, okay? So with the analogy bit, actually, here's what we wrote for irony down here. I like ours better. Okay, so make sure you're writing that stuff down. Honestly, really, all you have to write is this, but this is like context to what I was just saying. Is there anything else ironic? Yes, at the front.
I don't know if it's ironic, but there's a man cutting cake, and then the cake is pink. Think about it.
So how would you build that into your response?
I don't know.
It's okay, buddy. It's my video. If anyone's getting canceled, it'll be me. What's up? Just say it.
It's like
It's okay. We're all thinking it, but you just gotta say it.
taking half of everything and then
So that's interesting that you thought you'd get canceled for saying this, because I would feel like you'd get canceled for saying the opposite. Like, no, men don't have this authority. I feel like that's more cancelable than. I feel like most people agree with that statement. Right. What's up? So if you look at the charter, like this area kind of connects to the part of Aboriginal rights. Whoa! That is impressive. Yeah. It looks like they're about to cut section 25, which is your Aboriginal Indigenous rights. They have the 25 here, you know. I'll join in on that one. That was that was good. Let them cook. Okay, let them cook. That was well done. Section 25 looks as if it is being removed. That is the number on top of the cake. Even if the 25 on the cake is referring to the birthday in 2007, the government apologized to Indigenous peoples. Okay, hey, so this document's available on your Google Classroom as well, in case you're like, ooh, I want to be lazy. I don't want to write this, okay? I don't recommend you be lazy. Just get into the habit, write this stuff down is good, right? Because maybe you write it down, maybe you get another bright idea, right? And then you share it, and then like 10 of us go, that was well done. I was thinking about the same thing, right? Okay. Hey, that was well done. That's pretty cool. I like this. Okay. Sometimes it amazes me the responses my students come up with. Like, that was actually very clever. Hopefully, let's hope. Okay. So for this next bit, the analogy and the message, you can do them as the same. Okay. So let's just write down in the overall message, and I want you kids to come up with some ideas that I'll write down. What do you think is the overall message of this image, of this source? Okay. I'll give you a moment to do that. Oh, big shout out to the student who saved this recording right now. Okay, so what are some of the what were some of your responses? Like, a lot of you had like really clever, very spot on observations, a lot of things that I didn't think about. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Yes, go ahead. Interesting. I would say some of those rights protect those groups, right? But the government can remove our rights easily. The source is showing the government removing. I'm just gonna write certain types of rights. Okay. So if you wanna, oh, you're busy. You're messing with your buddy back there. I can't say your name while it's recording, just for privacy's sake. But if you want to run with that argument, please do. Just tighten it up, okay? Because there's some things that I think are a little bit off. Because those sections, you got to understand, also protect the rights of Aboriginal people and language minorities. And, you know, that bottom right section protects all Canadians against tyranny of government, right? So we got to be careful about saying those are, you know, bad rights. But explore that a little bit more, right? Like, because I think you're trying to say something, you're just not quite where you want to be. Make sense? Okay. Anybody else? Overall message is cartoon. Why is it important? Because some of you might take this kind of approach as well. I think it's pretty cool, right? But there's a number of different ways that you could write about this topic. This is part of the reason why some students hate social studies. You know, some people, they just want like one way to do things, or two ways, right? Like math is pretty straightforward. You have a formula, you do it. You either did or you didn't. But right, for some people, we don't like that either. I didn't really like math. I struggled with it. Social studies, there's like, you know, potentially 10 responses that are correct. It's just a matter of how you, going back to the rubric here, it's just a matter of how you defend your interpretation of the source. So I'll ask once again, kindly, anybody else want to share? Anybody, please. Who would like an opportunity to cook? Can't cook right now, come on. Okay, maybe we'll wrap it up there. Actually, I should probably say something just for the video's sake. Overall message, nah, you know what? This is good enough. Yeah, so the recording is recording the screen, it's recording me, it's recording the audio. No. I would not live stream while teaching a class. You kids would take advantage of it. You'd yell things. Okay. It's still recording, so I can hear all this. So it doesn't seem like anybody wants to share anything. I will let you kids cook individually on your own tomorrow.